Hello and welcome to Joylogs Presents What I Learned From, a series that will try to capture the joy and the journey of learning. Okay, so this is our very first episode, and thank you so much for joining us. Last week, we had done a brief introduction video, just sharing a little bit about Joylogs, what is it that the company stands for, and the purpose behind this particular series. But also to sort of sum up, what I learned from is truly a series that I have started just to be able to share my own joy and my own journey of learning. I feel that conversations, dialogues, and learning have played such an important role in my own life, and I have truly seen the difference in my life before and after these conversations. And I hope to share, a small part of that joy with all of you. And I really hope that through these small videos, through these episodes, in some small way, you yourself are able to not just experience the joy of learning, but also really be able to share that journey with another person, really engage in a heartfelt dialogue, on anything that you might have learned with another person. And maybe this is one chain that we can all initiate. So, with that purpose, we will start our very, very first episode. And of course, like I shared last time, the first thing that we will cover, the first thing that I wanted to share with all of you, something that I'm currently engaged in, is this book, which is The Tao of Physics by Fritjof Capra. And I would like to really share, everything that I am feeling, I am sort of learning when I'm reading this book. This is not an easy book, but at the same time, it is absolutely enriching. And this video is the first part of what I am learning from the Tao of Physics. Okay, so has it ever happened to you that you've had a deeply profound spiritual experience that has in some way changed the direction of your life? It needn't be a very large sort of change, but it has, had a very, very strong influence on who you are and what you end up creating in the world, in your life. So I feel like, these experiences, these really inherent experiences that are very difficult to put into words, sometimes in many ways just completely shift, the direction of who we are, the direction of the kind of lives that we live. And I feel like in my own life, I've probably in some very minor way experienced it. Like maybe a few years ago, maybe in 2012, I feel like I had some of these experiences. But imagine now when they happen at a very, very like deep scale. And I do know of people, I do know of friends, who've had such experiences. And I had a friend whose father was able to actually predict, because he used to meditate so much. He was able to predict his own, his own passing away, right down to the precise moment of when he would pass away and how he would pass away. And I remember that when he would meditate, he used to feel like he could go inside his body when he's meditating, and at the same time like be present somewhere in the universe. And how he used to feel like through his meditation he had an awareness that even a grain of sand has life. And I feel like and of course these are experiences that are very, they're not like day to day, they're not like it is not that every one of us has experiences like this, but uh, these are experiences that people around us have had, and it has had a very, very great, very deep impact on their lives. And the reason why I wanted to why I'm speaking about this is because even this book, The Tao of Physics, actually starts because of one such experience. So it's an old book, it was published 46 years ago. But even before that, even 5, 6 years before this book was published, the author had one such, in fact, not one, like a couple of such deeply profound spiritual experiences where he might just be sitting on the beach, but he suddenly had an awareness when he was completely sort of conscious and completely like aware of everything that is happening around him. Like he could sense the rhythm of the energy even in rocks, in air, in waves, cosmic rays. He was able to feel the rhythm of everything suddenly, and of course it led to him feeling this great burst of joy from his own life. And it was such experiences in his life that prompted him to even write this book, that prompted him to even initiate this book. And I feel like I really feel like these experiences that we have in some way really sort of can guide us in things that we could not have earlier imagined to do. One of the first things that I really took back from this book is actually a quote that the author shares, from physicist Werner Heisenberg. And in this quote, Heisenberg is sharing that how it is probably true quite generally that in the history of human thinking, the most fruitful developments frequently take place at those points where two different lines of thought meet. So I really felt like that's actually true, that the most impactful development, the most impactful changes in the world actually do not come, when one person just advances ahead based on his or her own thinking. But it actually comes when maybe there is a meeting or a dialogue of two very, very different thoughts, maybe opposing thoughts, maybe conflicting thoughts. But when they come together, when they sort of come together and try and understand each other, try and find a common point, that is when some of the greatest changes in human history have happened. The second thing that that I really sort of took back from this book is actually something that the author shared regarding the concept of yin and yang. And of course, we all understand that how yin and yang really represents balance. It represents balance not just of masculine and feminine, but really of light and dark, of good and bad, of maybe two polar extremes. But here, in this particular book, a little at the beginning, the author actually quotes a Chinese saying, an ancient, famous Chinese saying, that says that the yang, having reached its climax, retreats in favor of the yin. So the yang, having reached its climax, retreats in favor of the yin. So what the author is also trying to say here is that we've spent so many centuries, really sort of favoring the yang, which is the masculine energy, or we could say that it sort of stands for self-assertion, it stands for analysis, it stands for rational knowledge, it stands for science over religion, it stands for competition over cooperation, it stands for expansion over conservation, anything like that. But for so many years now, we have really favored the yang side of life. But what will naturally happen in the world is that there will come a time when the yang will reach its climax. And then automatically, nature will sort of have its own course where the yang will also start retreating in the favor of yin. And I think in many ways, what we're also seeing these days, with so much focus on, conserving the environment, protecting the environment, really helping nurture the environment, or even with respect to our own health, really us going back to alternate therapies, us really sort of focusing not just on material benefits, but on a lot of sort of spiritual comforts and spiritual independence, so to speak, is in a way, the yang, which has reached its climax, now retreating in the favor of yin. And what I really took back from this point is that life will always be, will always be in harmony when there is a balance of yin and yang. And even if, we sort of, we go on a tangent and we lose that balance, there will come a time when autocorrect will happen. None of us can actually just continue on this path forever. Because, life itself will sort of bring yin and yang together one day. Even if we are not doing it consciously, life will take its own course where we will one day sort of be in a way forced to harmonize the two if you're not already doing it. So the third point that really sort of stayed with me, with this book, is that how the origin, the very very first thoughts maybe that we know of, in both science, physics, and let's say the religion as we know of today, were actually the same. So in, of course, 6th century BC, 2500 years ago or something, in Greek philosophy, when physics sort of came into being, the idea was not to sort of come up with theory of relativity or to understand the Newtonian laws. The idea was just to be able to understand the essential nature of things. What is that true nature of things, that the world has. That is what the Greek philosophers were really interested in. And if we really also understand the origins of mysticism, here in the East, and even how our religion sort of really goes back to ancient times, the idea was not, it didn't start with the concept of God. Of course, gods did happen because humans felt a need for God, but the original idea was still to be able to fathom in some way the essential nature of everything. Of course, in religion, in mysticism, we do believe that the essential nature of things is divine, and that is what you sort of end up worshipping. But originally, that was also the purpose of physics. Somewhere maybe down the road, both schools sort of took very very different paths, and they became they came to probably points where they were almost like polar opposites. They were in conflict with one another, and they have been for many centuries. We do know about that from our history. But the origin was the same. The origin was actually together. They were united when in spirit, at least, when they sort of originated, that both wanted to understand this very primary nature of things. So the author says that the quantum theory thus reveals a basic oneness of the universe. So I will not get into what the quantum theory says and how the author has sort of come to this point. But what the author is saying here, that atomic physics, as as it stands, at least as it stood at that point in time, I'm sure much more development would have happened. But what it tells us is that everything in the universe is interconnected, and there is no difference between the observed and the observer. And that, I feel, is is something that can have so many permutations and combinations in our own life. When you sort of take away that distinction between the observed and the observer. So what it essentially means is that the person who is perceiving a thing is equally a part of the equation as the thing is. So if I am sort of perceiving something, then the thing in itself may not have an absolute nature, but the way I perceive the thing makes it what it is. Similarly, another person with a very different life might perceive the same thing in very different ways. Now imagine if you sort of just extrapolate it to our own lives. It just means that the same situation will be perceived, and is perceived, as we know it already, is perceived very differently by two different people. The same challenge might be a challenge to one person, it might be an opportunity to another person. And imagine something that is so philosophical in nature is also something that, atomic physics is saying, is also something that quantum theory is saying. Like, imagine how the two are coming together despite such great apparent differences. And I feel like if we also sort of just keep the book aside, we keep what the book is saying aside, but if we can just understand this point that the world on its own has no, is not good and bad. There is nothing good and bad in the world. It is only the way I perceive it that gives it this, this identity of either being good or bad or positive or negative or whatever. But it is because of my own mind that gives this world, a certain kind of identity. And the moment I change my perception to things, the moment I change my attitude to things, then actually the world will change. It might sound super theoretical and completely disconnected from reality. And maybe we can speak a little more about this, next time. But what I really wanted to mention, as my last learning point is that that is exactly what quantum theory is saying. That is exactly what atomic physics is telling you. It is not just philosophy, it is not just mysticism, it is not just positive thinking anymore, but even science says that that's true. How amazing is that? It's been a wonderful read, and in fact, it's really sort of really motivated me to now actually go back and study a little bit about maybe quantum physics. I am not a science student, so all of this is really very difficult for me. But I really, really want to give it a try. I want to understand what it truly stands for. I also want to learn a little bit more about the physicists of that time. But this is again just what I am up to, what I am learning from this book. Of course, we will come back next week with the second part of the book. And if there is absolutely anything that you have felt after seeing this video, or if you have happened to read the book, or if you have any thoughts on even the points that I shared, anything that got triggered in your own heart, in your own life, please do share. The idea is to just talk to one another, because the more we talk, the more we share, the more we learn. And that is how we'll grow. We'll probably be able to spread more joy and learning in the world. So thank you all so much, and I will see you next week.